is just, it's just outlandish.
Semifinals underway here. Baumeister's going to start off with a Temple of Plenty. Top card goes to the bottom. We head Kastel's way. Kastel will take a draw. Looks like he's kept his 6-card hand. He does have a Sandsep Citadel start, and that's where he will start. We'll go back Baumeister's way. Corey with a Forest. A Fleece main line, so no mana acceleration.
It's pretty good news for Chad. You know, Fleece main line is definitely a threat, but I think Chad's much prefer to play against the aggressive side of the deck than the mana ramping side of the deck.
Chad is the one with mana acceleration here, which will allow Corey to attack here for 3 points of damage, so Kastel will go down to 17. There is a Plains, this is a Courser, and we'll take a look at the top card of the deck, which is a Forest. We go back Kastel's way. Kastel will take a draw. And it's time for a turn 3 Siege Rhino. So he's back up to 20. Baumeister down to 17, so you can just flip and reverse those life totals. And there's a roadblock in the way. And we head back Corey's way. We'll draw that Forest. Top card is a Forest. Forest will come in, trigger the Courser. Up to 18 we go. We might have a Banishing Light perhaps. We do. This will allow Corey to keep attacking for 5. Kastel down to 15.
And these are also the kind of draws from Corey in the post-board games where Crux of Fate is just awesome.
Yeah.
But game 1, Corey can be very, very aggressive in just deploying his threats like this.
Satyr Wayfinder will allow Kastel to turn over a couple of cards here. Windswept Teeth will go to the hand. The rest go to the graveyard, which is 2 Coursers and a Hero's Downfall. Temple of Malady will come in here for Kastel. Take a look at the top card. Leaves it on top pretty quickly. And now a follow-up is a Caryatid and a Passing of the Turn. Back to Baumeister we go. Temple of Plenty the draw. Take a look at the top cards, copy of Pelucranos. Caryatid will jump in front of Courser. 3 damage will come across. Kastel down to 12. Forest will come in. Here's Whisperwood Elemental, which means the Manifest will be joining it, which happens to be a copy of Pelucranos.
Pretty good turn.
Windswept Teeth is the top card here. Because Courser's in play, Corey will leave it face up with the Manifest on it. Doesn't mean it's unmorphed, just wants to help Chad out, save him some time, as those things can be kind of annoying to keep track of. We'll go back Kastel's way now. Picked up a copy of Siege Rhino, so he'll play that. He's up to 15, Baumeister down to 15. Tie game. Both players with some pretty large boards here, but I think things favor Corey right now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's the one with more power in play. He's developing his board better. A monstrous Fleece main line is really annoying for Chad to work through. He doesn't have a lot of ways to get through on the ground at that point. So, yeah, Corey definitely in the driver's seat, in my opinion.
Windswept Teeth the draw here for Baumeister. On top of the deck is a Voyaging Satyr.
So Corey not able to go crazy with mana just yet. No copies of Nykthos. And so I think that trying to get Pelucranos online is not the most attractive option right now.
Of course, you're going to come in and trigger here with the Windswept Teeth. Both players are going to make sure life totals are correct here.
And Corey appears to have multiple copies of Generous Hydra in his hand, which is not a bad way to spend some time while you're waiting for Nykthos or some other really big payout.
Yeah. Voyaging Satyr just going to come in. Another Manifest there from Whisperwood Elemental. Top cards of Temple of Plenty. We'll pass the turn back to Kastel. It's a copy of Sandsep Citadel.
Yeah, Chad's hand now just lands.
He needs something like a Whip, a Hornet Queen, but even a Whip in this situation, his graveyard's not great. He's got 2 Coursers down there. That's it.
Yeah, there's nothing going on, and Corey can also just chump block with the Fleece main line, or go monsters, excuse me, with the Fleece main line, or find chump blockers, and not even put stuff in the graveyard if he's not feeling so inclined.
Corey very quickly going to sacrifice with the windswept teeth. He'll lose one, then gain one, of course, due to the Corsair of Crewfix interaction. So we'll see a new top card here, as he did not want to draw Temple of Plenty. Take a look at the top card. Elvish Mystic. Still in Kastel's end step, we might see an unmorph here of the Pelucranos, and we do. Unmorph the Voyaging Satyr 2. And all it takes is a card like Nykthos to come rolling up the top here, and things get out of control.
Even without Nykthos, Corey's way, way ahead at this point. But once Nykthos shows up, Chad having nothing in hand, I don't think he has much game.
Elvish Mystic the draw, carry added on top. There's a Temple. Top card goes to the bottom. Let's see the next card. Oh boy. In this sort of game where we're having this holding pattern, not good. Now, Whisperwood Elemental is in play, so it actually would manifest Mastery of the Unseen right now. So we'll see if there's any way for Corey to kind of control and make sure that doesn't happen. Genesis Hydra might be that way.
Genesis Hydra is the out.
There's Genesis Hydra. It's going to be for 5. There are 5 cards. None of them are better than Mastery of the Unseen. Yeah. Chad says, I'm pretty sure you want that Man Accelerant, right? And he says, not even close. In these sort of back and forth haymaker affairs, this green-white devotion deck seems almost unbeatable.
Sometimes we've seen Abzan, mid-range and Ream airless that have played things like End Hostilities in the main deck or a Dune Blast or something to get out of spots like this. And Chad does have Crux of Fate in his sideboard, so he does have a workaround here. But game 1, it's just free reign. Chad's answers are all 1-for-1, things like, Banishing Light and Murderous Cut and Hero's Downfall and such. So Corey can just go crazy doing this. He doesn't even have to do anything risky, He could have probably at some point Monstrous Pelucranos and try to do something there, but it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
He can just be as patient as he wants to be because nothing bad is going to happen.
And the big problem here is, you mentioned Crux of Fate, that's in the sideboard. So what's Kastel supposed to draw towards to get himself out of this? He's got 3 lands in his hand. He just picked up a copy of Windswept Teeth for the turn. And, his kind of trump card that we saw against Boswell was a card like Hornet Queen. Yeah. And Hornet Queen is not going to be able to damage race past the Master of the Unseen. It's just not going to happen. And, of course, Corey can control Hornet Queen with Pelucranos. So the inevitability is Baumeister's.
At this point, it's only Chad's tolerance for playing out the game. I'm serious. There's nothing.
I agree with you.
There's nothing to be done from this position. I think even if Chad stacked his deck, I don't think he could win from this spot.
Yeah.
That's usually my threshold for conceding.
Yeah.
But, you're here. It's a Grand Prix top 4. Might as well see what's up.
I mean, we're not one to call a game over before it's over. And
right.
Strange things have certainly happened in games of Magic that we have watched and covered. But you just look draw step to draw step. And I agree with you. If Chad were to stack his deck right now and stack Corey's deck,
right,
I'm not sure he could win. And so here's another copy of Genesis Hydra. This will be for 6. A Whisperwood Elemental looks like it's probably going to be the best card.
I like selecting Whisperwood Elemental.
Yeah, you approve of this message. Could have taken another Master of the Unseen and started gaining oodles of life, but he elected not to. This is what makes this deck really tough. That's why it's been a breakout deck of the tournament. The combination of Master of the Unseen with Nykthos. Of course, there are some cheap creatures to unmorph. There are some expensive ones, too. And the fact that Genesis Hydra can find Master of the Unseen, put it into play, and lets you consistently do this, is now Corey's going to come across here with a big old Genesis Hydra. Siege Round was going to bite the dust. And now Corey's going to be able to actually just start attacking.
Yeah. That was the last roadblock.
Yeah. Look at his board as opposed to Chad's. Manifest Trigger. Manifest Trigger. Oh, Nykthos on top. That's fun.
It's combo with Pelucranos. That is if Chad had any creatures.
Yeah, which, well it kind of does.
Yeah, Chad just playing around it right now by having nothing in play.
It's a unique way. Chad will draw a card for the turn. He's also going to pick up his lands and his mana accelerants and move on. Corey Baumeister is going to win game number 1 here over Chad Kastel. Green-White Devotion up a game here over Abzan Reanimator. How we thought game 1 was going to go.
Yeah.
It's too much to overcome.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that when we get to the sideboard here, we'll delve into it in a moment, the copies of Crux of Fate at least cause Corey to have to play the games a little bit differently.
Yeah, and those are the cards you see there for Kastel. 2 Crux of Fate, we can go bottom up. 2 Glare of Heresy, 3 Drowning Sorrow, 3 Read the Bones, a Reclamation Sage of Thoughtseize, and then 3 copies of Mastery of the Unseen.
So I'm a big fan of bringing in the Crux of Fates here. I think Drowning Sorrow is fine to bring in. There's a lot of mana creatures to tie down. The Glare of Heresies, I think Master of the Unseen may be good enough in the matchup, and there's Banishing Light as well that it's worth bringing that in. And the Reclamation Sage can come in for similar reasons, and I also think the Rita Bones can come in too. Corey isn't really threatening Chad's life total in the sense that Chad has to be worried about damage racing. If Corey wins, it's going to be through an avalanche of resources, what we just saw there. So I think that Chad, given that he's bringing in all this removal, can also bring in the Read the Bones and try to play that sort of game plan.
So here's the question. What are the bad cards in Chad's deck that he should bring out?
I think Sylvan Caryatid is questionable when he wants to be playing with Crux of Fate. I think Corsair Krufix in some number can come out. I suspect Soul of Innistrad is not very good in a matchup where Corey is not going to be putting things in Chad's graveyard. So yeah, there's some options.
Other side here for Corey, he's got 2 Nissa Worldwakers, 3 Boon Satyrs, 2 Reclamation Sage, 2 Glare of Heresy, 4 Valor Stance, and then 2 copies of High Sentinels of Erishin. What do we like here?
A lot of things in Chad's deck to kill with Valor Stance. So that is excellent here. I think that Glare of Heresy has enough targets to bring in. The Reclamation Sage can also answer Whip of Erebos and so forth. Boon Satyrs, Nissa, honestly, getting a little more aggressive here isn't bad either. So besides the High Sentinels, I think the entire sideboard is live. I think Valorous Stance is probably the best card here, and Reclamation Sage and Glare of Heresy sort of the next wave beyond that.
For you Madison, Wisconsin Magic fans out there, Daniel Cacchetti does win game number 1 here over Ralph Patesh. If you want that green-white devotion mirror, we're almost there.
Yeah, we are approaching it.
Last time we had it, we got through a game. Actually, we did.
No, we did not.
No, we actually. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry. We did not get through a game.
Sam was 8 turns away from either dealing 500 some odd damage, whatever you need to deal, or getting debt. I can't recall. See, here's the thing. When you and I were playing the green-white Devotion Mirror match, we actually did battle that a little bit on Thursday or Friday. It felt like one of us just got to ramp into Whisperwood Elemental, and that was the end of the game.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get a game like that, and then post-board, High Sentinels can kill someone pretty fast.
I'd like to see a High Sentinels win. That'd be sweet. Never get to see that card.
Lost it in a draft a few times. I haven't gotten to see it in constructed.
It's just a sweet card. A little sideboard tech from Brad Nelson, the High Sentinels.
Now, I guess Daniel does have a slight edge in the mirror match because of his main deck Tamer Sabertooth, which we saw once both players have a boatload of mana, Tamer Sabertooth alongside Pelucranos or Genesis Hydra as appropriate, can allow someone to power through what would seemingly be a neutral board state.
Yeah, we saw that with Sam against Michael Majors too.
Yeah.
Being able to basically infinitely loop Pelucranos, pick it up, fight a bunch of stuff, pick it up, fight a bunch of stuff, clear your board, and then kill you.
And not to get ahead of ourselves here, but Daniel does have some juice for the mirror match also.
Oh, does he?
Oh, yeah.
Define juice.
Hunt the Hunter.
Oh, boy.
Boom. Tests and Tactics. Boom.
He came prepared.
Yeah, he's
Does
ready.
not want to lose the mirror match. Now, High Sentinel, I was actually questioning myself for a moment what set it was from. It's from Kastel here.
Right. Arguably the best card in Limited in the set.
This is my way of complaining that I've never opened it in the draft practice that I've done for Grand Prix Cleveland, which is next weekend.
Well, I would suggest that if you open it, you select it, and if your opponent plays it, you should kill it, and that's all the testing you really need to do with that thing.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
More expert advice coming down the pipeline.
Yeah. I'll keep all of that in mind. I am quite fond of drafting white strategies in Khans of Tarkir.
Okay, so there you go.
So
just be prepared.
I'm really opening myself up to opening Citadel Siege and High Sentinels of Erishin.
Yeah, we mate rock as well. So
absolutely. See, you should just pick a color going in. If it has the best rares and mythics, that's just the one that you draft or force. That's high-level strategy. Perhaps that will be my plan next week, and I don't want to give away my plan.
See, at Grand Prix is where people are more inclined to draft for realsies compared to, say, FNM. There's a strategy of selecting the color with the most financially lucrative rares,
Okay.
assuming that they will come to you and then,
Also smart.
yep. That's
Also
another way to do it. So you want to do some research there.
I've got almost a week to get it done.
Guess red for Sarkin, Spirit,
Hello.
probably. I don't know. There's a lot of testing to be done, is the short of it.
See, the nice thing is, in Fate Reforged, Ugin.
Yeah,
It's
there you go,
possible.
colorless.
Anybody.
Perfect.
Anybody can have that one. So I'll just take that with me. Corey Baumeister does win game number 1 here in this matchup against Chad Kastel. Green White Devotion, Obzon Reanimator. Kastel will be on the play for game number 2. And of course, our backup match, if we have time, to jump that way, Ralph Patesh, Daniel Cacchetti. Cacchetti with Green White Devotion up a game here over Obzon Aggro. This is the breakout deck. We saw 2 weeks ago in Memphis, Jack Vogel win with Sultai Control, beat Ben Stark and his red-white aggro deck with 4 copies of Outpost Siege in the finals. And Obzon was a big talk of that particular tournament, as Team TCG player had 4 Fleeceman lines in the sideboard that were very, very good for them. But with a new week comes a shift in the metagame, and Green White Devotion seems to be right at the top of things right now.
Though Obzon also still obviously very much a player here. An aggro list and a reanimator list here in the top 4 as well, but Green White Devotion definitely the breakout deck.
Well, I don't expect Obzon to be going anywhere. Deck is fantastic, obviously.
And it's also just, a lot of people are always going to gravitate towards just, this is a collection of good stuff. And that's what Obzon does. So there's some decks where, you have to round out, decks like Mono Red where you have to round out with some less than attractive cards, or decks like Green White Devotion where there's some complexity and you get these polarized draws. And Obzon is just, here's a pile of good stuff. A lot of people are going to be drawn to that.
Sometimes pile of good stuff is all you need.
No, clearly. I mean, the deck's got quite the resume. I'm selling it short by calling it a pile of good stuff. But, in contrast to decks like Devotion or Mono Red or the Jeskai token decks, it's a little less fancy, more of a blunt instrument.
Someone chimed in here. N.W. Robinson. I could open Master of the Unseen. Another white card. I think white's the choice.
Okay.
For limited. And I've had Master of the Unseen.
Pretty solid.
It's not beatable.
Pretty solid.
It's pretty tough to beat, yeah. The first time I unmorphed something and Magic Online triggered and I couldn't figure out what was happening because Morph doesn't use the stack, I was gaining life. What on earth? Why am I gaining life?
I didn't even need it. Because otherwise the second copy of the card does nothing.
It's true.
That's why they have that rider.
I will take 5 life with me. Thank you for asking. Kastel's going to take a look at his hand. Looks like he is happy as Baumeister will look at his. Little water delivery here. Don't worry, Corey. We'll wait for you. We'll wait for him. Get that water in you.
Can't go without him, so
He's
I
gonna
don't have a choice.
Temple of Silence will start game number 2.
We can DQ him, I guess, but
That seems a
right,
seems
little harsh.
little harsh.
Right? So we are waiting.
And Elvis Mystic to start things off here for Baumeister. He'll take the initiative back even though he's on the draw. Kastel with a Thoughtseize. Now we see a hand here with Genesis Hydra, Courser of Krufix, Sylvan Caryatid, Valor Stance, Voyaging Satyr, and a Plains.
And you can see Chad immediately push aside the cards that are just pure mana. Corey's going to have enough to work with, so they're not really worth considering.
I always find this to be a good way to resolve a Thoughtseize too. It can be kind of overwhelming when you just lay out the cards out in front of you. Once you start moving some cards around and say, okay, you know what, this one doesn't matter, this one doesn't matter. I don't want to cloud my decision-making process.
You can be, you have to be really careful with it because you can give away information about your hand given the way that you're separating it. I think Corey knows that Chad's also not considering taking the mana creature, so that's pretty safe to set aside, but perceptive players pick up on everything, so.
It's interesting because I think that I agree overall here, even though we don't have a great look at Kastel's hand of, okay, Caryatid, Voyaging Satyr, keep those. And obviously can't take the Plains. Valor Stance, depending on the hand, so it's a decision between Courser and Genesis Hydra. Genesis Hydra being the payoff card. Courser being a card that builds an incremental advantage so that you can get to your payoff cards.
And Chad here with a second copy of Thoughtseize in hand, so I can see just going, I'll take Courser, next turn I'll take Genesis Hydra, then you have a bunch of mana in a Valorous Stance, and that's not a hard hand to work around.
There's Evolving Wilds. Kastel will pass the turn back over to Baumeister. Baumeister will take a draw step. Temple of Plenty is what he's found. There is the Temple. Corey will move the top card to the bottom. Sylvan Caryatid, pass the turn back. Kastel will sacrifice Evolving Wilds at the end of Baumeister's turn. And there is a Swamp. Leads me to believe he has some green mana in his hand. You just saw Windswept Heath.
A lot of double black in the deck, though, post-board. Hero's Downfall and Crux of Fate. So Chad now with Tassiger in hand, and that's going to make this decision very interesting because he can take Valorous Stance and try to push through the Genesis Hydra, just slug through it, which is what it looks like he's doing, or he can take Genesis Hydra and then just try to either play a second 4-toughness threat like Siege Runner to draw out of the Valorous Stance. He can try to just ignore it outright. It looks like he's going to try to play through the Genesis Hydra.
Well, there's a third card in the graveyard. Windswept Heath would be the fourth card in the graveyard.
And that's 2 mana.
That's 2 mana, yeah. That's a turn 3 Tassiger.
Two Thoughtseizes to boot, not a bad opening.
It's not bad at all. I think this is the kind of game that he's got to play. Heading Baumeister's way. Courser the draw. Take a look at the top card. It's Plains. Plains will come in. Trigger the Courser. Up to 21 goes Corey. Top card now is a Pelucranos. Voyaging Satyr. Time to move it over.
And now you can kind of see why Crux of Fate is so good for Chad
Oh,
post-board. Because Corey's board, for all that he's doing, is still not in a position to attack yet. He's got to advance beyond this. While Chad can just set behind Tassiger, activate it when he has mana left over, and then have a huge advantage when he decides to pull the trigger if he can find Crux of Fate.
Looks like Kastel's not going to move into the red zone here. How do you feel about damage racing here when he's got a Banishing Light and a Hero's Downfall in hand?
Not a huge fan with Pelucranos on top and Genesis Hydra in hand.
Yeah?
I think there's a very good chance here that Chad attacks, and then the door gets shut on him attacking for a very long time next turn. At that point, I'd rather just hang back on D and not take the damage from the Courser. Set up for a long game. I think Chad may have the tools to win a long game, but I know that he's not going to be winning short, and that's not the way this game is shaping up.
Top card is a copy of Elvis Mystic. I think Kastel may be considered stopping Baumeister in his draw step, but says no, you can continue.
The other side of that is I'm never going to begrudge someone who decides to attack. But I think in that spot, you're better off just kind of holding it down for a little while.
Genesis Hydra time. It's for 5. Take a look at the top 5 cards. See how bad it will be. 5 is a key number because that can find Witchwood Elemental, though it does not here. And actually, really doesn't find much at all.
Nope.
I'd love to Valorous Stance that if I could, but you can't. So just know it's Mystic, a bullet dodged.
Yeah. And Chad, with an answer in hand, actually 2 answers in hand for the Pelucranos. He's got an answer for Genesis Hydra, and you can just really settle in for a long game here and let Tassiger do its thing.
Maybe I just like attacking too much. Because I don't want to settle in for that long of a game.
Well, I don't think Chad really has a choice. I don't think he's in a position to really damage race here.
think Kastel considering Hero's downfall here, which I like playing.
I think he has a downfall here because he really wants to start using Tassiger. And if he says go, you know, if he just untaps here, untaps his land, says go, with the intent on activating Tassiger, Corey untaps and plays Pelucranos and attacks for 5. At that point, you have to downfall something.
Yep.
And then, you know, you're just way behind at that point.
Read the bones.
And I like that Chad brought this card in. I wasn't sure if he was going to do it. But the way he's playing his post board, I think, to settle in for just a long slugfest with a lot of sweepers. Corey's not going to be really damage racing, not threatening his life total like that, so I like bringing it in.
Chad going to give this a lot of thought. His
Yeah,
hand right now is Banishing Light, Hornet Queen.
I know he's looking at Drown and Sorrow right now, and the question is, you know, is the damage already done by these mana creatures?
Drown Sorrow seems fairly attractive. It's
I agree.
Tough. Thoughtseize is pretty attractive too, especially when you know your opponent is drawing Blossoming Sands.
Now, if with Thoughtseize, I think taking Drown and Sorrow is a no-brainer, because the only question is, are you going to be too far behind in tempo answering the Pelucranos to worry about it? Now, it does a ton of damage.
And that Pelucranos on top really isn't all that annoying because he has a Banishing Light in his hand, so that's okay. Corey's going to play Blossoming Sands. He'll gain 2 life, 1 from the Blossoming Sand trigger, 1 from the Courser trigger, so he's up to 23. No good attacks, though. Tassiger's holding down the fort, so this kind of way that you want to play it, which is start to grind, is working okay for Kastel right now. And Chad might be considering an attack here.
Well, this turn I like being down. The only risk here is Corey says block with everything, which seems like that's probably not happening.
Here is Drown and Sorrow.
It's a safer way to do it. I think Chad costs himself 2 points doing it this way, but it's not a big deal.
Time to scry. We got an update. We got Green-White Devotion on one side. Daniel Cachetti gets the job done. He's on to the finals, takes care of Ralph Patesh 2-0. Corey Baumeister, it's on you to make it a Green-White Devotion mirror in the finals, as Tasker's going to come across for 2, not 4, thanks to Drown and Sorrow. Whisperwood Elemental, the top card of the deck. So this is back-to-back nice draws here for Corey. He's got a Pelucranos now. He'll have Whisperwood next turn. There's a Sandstep Citadel. And now Chad's got to weigh his options of, am I supposed to banish it like this, or am I supposed to wait for Whisperwood Elemental?
I think the plan that I like here from Chad is to banishing like the Pelucranos, attack, and hope that Hornet Queen can race if he gets to land number 7. I guess the flip side is here, he can still just sit back on Tassiger for 1 more turn.
I suppose.
But he's taking a hit down to 6 from Pelucranos at the minimum. And then what's the plan next turn?
Yeah, that's part of the reason I didn't love the attack the turn with the Drown and Sorrow, because the damage starts to add up a little bit. Like, I think that either you are damage racing from the start or you're never attacking.
Right, you're all defense or you're all offense.
I don't like trying to play both sides of the ball, because now this attack, if he's not banishing lighting, it's like, well, I'm taking 5. I'm down to 6. These chip shots are starting to add up here a little bit.
The reason that I think I would have banishing lighted the Pelucranos last turn is if you draw, you get to hit for 4, which is nice. In the event that you draw land number 7, it's awesome for you. You can attack again and then play Hornet Queen and race. And if you fail to draw land number 7, your Tassiger is a 4/5 against a 4/4 and a 2/2. So you can block for a while and give yourself some time.
I think it's really important, just giving himself as much time as possible. Corey wants to take a look at the graveyard here. Tasker activation. Not sure if it's going to block or not. Also, to keep in mind, Chad's 2 cards, we know them, are Banishing Light and Hornet Queen. He's got 6 mana, so he has to even peel land to be able to play Hornet Queen.
Right. Yeah, sometimes Magic is a very complicated game, and there's a lot of complexity going on in this game, but I think last turn the play is straight up as you have a 4-5 against a 5-5 and a 4-4. You need to stop the 5-5.
Yeah.
Because your 4-5 stops the 4-4.
I think that I agree, because now it's a rock and a hard place. Now Courser can actually start to attack.
Right.
Get the job done. Chad's going to get a Drowned Sorrow back, which is yuck. And now we might be in chump block territory with Tasigur, which you obviously don't love. And Crux of Fate then doesn't become an out because Whisperwood Elemental's in play.
And Corey doesn't even need to deploy the Whisperwood Elemental if he even wants to at that point. He can say, all right, well, the only way this block makes sense is if you're setting up Crux and I can just sit back.
Yep.
Probably still play the Whisperwood Elemental, but it's not even required at that point. And the Hornet Queen isn't even in a long-term stabilizing piece in the face of the Pelucranos, because once Corey gets to enough mana, he can just fight and trade, essentially.
Well, Chad's going to go down to 4. He'll take a draw step. He does not play his Whisperwood Elemental that turn. That's an interesting decision to me. Reclamation Sage the draw. I think you got to play Banishing Light now.
Yeah. I mean, Banishing Light plus Reclamation Sage is not a bad turn here.
I don't hate it.
Kill the Courser. You get to beat down.
Yeah. It forces Corey's hand at that point to play Whisperwood Elemental, most likely.
Chad just doesn't have a path to play this through this Pelucranos any other way. It's just too big.
Yeah.
He can't block it. He can't try to play Reclamation Sage to set up some sort of double block because the Pelucranos can just kill the Reclamation Sage.
So here's Banishing Light. And again, we know the card in Corey's hand is Whisperwood Elemental. Top card of the deck, Courser of Crufix. We know that, of course, because of the Courser of Crufix that's in play. So here's Banishing Light. Pelucranos is going to be targeted with Banishing Light. There's no real fighting to be done here, it seems. I suppose the fight's like kind of a free roll.
Yeah, you fight on the way out, I guess, but doesn't really affect anything.
And I understand wanting to maybe hold Reclamation Sage in this instance for Master of the Unseen, but again, it's not there right now.
Yep.
So I think it's okay to pull the trigger, get in with Tasigur in this turn. Now I'm okay with getting on the offense. If you want to Reclamation Sage, get this Courser out of the way. Here's the attack. I still think you have to Sage this.
Yep.
Yeah, and he will.
I think Chad just has to get on the offensive right now because the Hornet Queen gives him a shot to win the game if he goes on the offensive.
Yes.
Corey's not equipped to block it right now, and you might just be able to sneak out the win.
We will not see the top card of Corey's deck because there is not a Courser in play. There's a Whisperwood Elemental in play now, which means the Morph will be a mystery. Now, as you mentioned, if Chad's able to draw and land that enters the battlefield untapped, life is actually pretty good. It looks like he drew a copy of Temple of Malady, so that's not an untapped land. It's still a land which isn't so bad. Top card goes to the bottom pretty quickly there. Yeah, and he says, I do not get to see that because there is no Courser in play.
Yeah, we know the card in Corey's hand is a Courser.
Correct.
We don't know anything else besides that.
And so now he can D up a little bit. A Tasigur activation, perhaps.
He's back in the same holding pattern now. He's at 4, and so You know, these manifest creatures coming off every turn is still bad news, but there's no immediate risk of dying. There is now an immediate risk of dying.
Things have changed. Banishing Light is here. Now there's a forced block. Kastel's down to 2. Here's a Courser. Perhaps. What's this going to be? Okay, another Courser. Corey not willing to play the one that's in his hand.
I thought it was one of the sideboarded Boon Satyrs for lethal, perhaps.
That would have been a beat. Take a look at the top card here. And they do get to see what that is because Courser's in play. That's good to know about. Oh, Fleece Main Lion. Now we can see the top card, which, oh, jeez. Master of the Unseen. This deck's really good.
Yeah. I've never seen a Devotion deck that just plays with so many solid cards.
Yeah.
Most of these decks have to be filled with enough nonsense to facilitate what's going on, but not this deck.
It's always been the problem that there aren't enough payoffs, and this deck does not have that problem because the cards that are kind of good early, like Fleece Main Lion is good late, Mastery 2,
Yep.
and then Whisperwood's completely busted, as we, I think, all know now. And Hornet Queen is a really good card. I don't know if it's good enough to get him out of this situation.
There's just so many sources of card advantage that you can't knock the deck out with just something like Hornet Queen or a Big Sweeper. I mean, you can sometimes, but it's hard to do.
Top card's a Forest. And even as we saw earlier in the tournament, when we watched Corey, even Ugin wasn't the end-all be-all.
No, it was not.
It was certainly good, but Manifest makes its way around Ugin, which many consider to be the ultimate trump. So here's a Manifest. Master of the Unseen comes into play. Manifest and Whisper Elemental. Pass the turn back, and I love Corey's play here of, I'm not really going to do anything because I don't need to make a move. I'm just going to overwhelm your Hornet Queen now.
No reason to make any sort of push here against a deck with Whip of Erebos in it. You can just say go. And once you're in a position to attack for lethal, go ahead and attack for lethal.
Here's a Commune. Corey wants to make sure he knows what this does. Chad will take a look at the top 5 cards. He'll reveal them to Corey, to us, to you. Take an enchantment or a creature among them. A Forest, a Courser, a Windswept Heath, a Read the Bones, a Crux of Fate. You get a Courser for your troubles. Actually satisfies both clauses. And now here's a Courser. See the top card of Kastel's deck here. It's a Glare of Heresy. Corey looks like he's going to manifest here. Whisperwood Elemental will be the mystery creature. The top card will be a Windswept Heath. Gonna unmorph Fleece Main Lion. Gain 6 life up to 25.
Still only 5 attackers versus 6 blockers.
Yep.
So most likely nothing to be done this turn, but next turn I think with Chad drawing Glare of Heresy, he's not going to be able to keep up.
No rush either.
Yeah.
He's at 25. He can gain life kind of at will. So one of the things that makes Master of the Unseen so tough is if you want to try to damage race, that's going to stop you from doing that.
It's off the table. Once you have a lot of mana, this cuts out a lot of things because 1-for-1 spot removal doesn't matter anymore, sweepers don't matter anymore, and damage racing becomes impossible. One of the watching this deck in action be able to beat Ash Cloud Phoenix and Stormbreath Dragon in tandem, which is a spot where green Devotion decks, even with pretty advanced boards, have fallen before. Just very impressive to see this update to green Devotion strategies. Mastery of the Unseen shores up a lot of weaknesses.
Top card, Temple of Plenty. I think we might just see Corey say, unmorph my Whisperwood Elemental so that I can just keep generating a bunch of creatures.
Also, if he goes monstrous with Fleece Main Lion, that's an attacker that can just knock out a 1-chump blocker this turn.
Yep, because it's lethal every turn.
Yeah.
Do a little math here. How many creatures out there does Chad have? He has 6. Corey has 6. So Corey's a little short.
And Corey is aware of Chad's last card. It's a Drown in Sorrow we gave him from the earlier Tassiger activation.
There's another courser. Now we'll see the unmorph. Gain 7. I don't think it's a matter of if.
Yeah.
I think it's a matter of when.
I think when is going to be next turn.
I
Also.
think so. A couple manifest creatures here. We'll see the top card from Courser here in just a moment. That's a copy of Valorous Stance. That can take care of the Courser that's in play. Glare of Heresy, the draw for Kastel. Glare of Heresy on top. And Glare can take care of Master of the Unseen.
And now we're at 8 attackers versus 6 blockers.
And Drown Star is not an option because that kills all of Chad's stuff. Corey will untap. He'll draw Valorous Stance. Top card is Valorous Stance. He's going to go reaching for creatures. Everybody's coming in. Kastel's going to do some blocking here, and it'll be his last block of the tournament. It's been a great run here for Chad. He'll be heading to the Pro Tour, but he's not winning this tournament. Corey Baumeister is going to win this match here over Chad Kastel. 2-0. Green-White Devotion will take care of Obzon mid-range. And it's not Brad Nelson, but it's part of the family. Head to the finals of a standard Grand Prix.
Yeah.